For years, you were told the weight was about willpower. Eat less, move more, push through the hunger and you'll be fine. And when it didn't work, when the weight crept back every single time, you were told the same thing, just louder. Try harder. Here's what almost no one explained to you. The hunger you were fighting all those years was never a character flaw. It was a signal. A real, measurable signal your own body was sending, on purpose, with a biology behind it that we can finally see. And these new medications everyone's arguing about at every dinner table in America, they don't hand you willpower. They reach in and turn that signal back down. I'm Sophia Hart, and on this channel we cut through the noise and read what the research actually says. Today, honestly, no hype, no fear, what these drugs really do inside your body. Let me paint a picture you'll probably recognize. You've done the diets. All of them. The low-fat years, the no-carb years, the shakes, the points, the app that buzzed at you about every bite. And the pattern was always the same. The first 2 weeks, something moves. You feel a little victory. And then the body digs in, the scale stops, and the hunger comes back like a tide you can't argue with. Not in your head, in your gut. Loud. So you go to your doctor, because surely there's an answer. And the visit lasts about 7 minutes. One hand already on the door, they tell you to cut your portions and get to the gym. Maybe hand you a pamphlet, and you walk out feeling like the problem is you. Like everyone else cracked the code, and you just don't want it badly enough. I want to say this clearly, because it took medicine far too long to say it out loud. That was never the truth. Your body was doing exactly what biology built it to do, defending its weight with everything it had, the way it kept your ancestors alive through every famine. The shame you've been carrying around for decades? Set it down. It was never yours to carry. And now there's this. Semaglutide, the one marketed as Ozempic for diabetes and Wegovy for weight loss. Tirzepatide, sold as Mounjaro and Zepbound. Half the internet calls it a miracle. The other half calls it cheating, or dangerous, or a shortcut you'll pay for later. Your neighbor dropped 40 pounds and somehow looks 10 years younger. Your coworker quit after 2 weeks because the nausea flattened her. A celebrity denies using it while wearing a face that says otherwise. And underneath all that noise, here's what nobody actually sat you down and explained. What these things are doing inside you. Not the headlines, the machinery, the real one. That's the whole job today. I'm not here to sell you a shot, and I'm not here to scare you off one. Both of those are easy, and both of them are lying to you. What I'm going to do is walk you through the actual biology, where these drugs came from, why they work when nothing else did, what they quietly cost, and what's coming next that already makes today's version look like a rough first draft. So stick with me, because a few minutes in, I'll show you something most people only find out the hard way. Why the very same shot that melts fat off your frame can quietly take your muscle along with it. And the single factor that decides whether the weight you lose stays gone after you stop or comes roaring back with interest. Because that part, the after, is where most of this story actually gets written. And almost no one warns you about it until it's already happening. So let's start at the beginning, where these drugs really came from and the accident that changed everything. It started with a lizard. In the early 1990s, a researcher named John Eng, working at a Veterans Affairs hospital in the Bronx, was studying the venom of the Gila monster, a slow, heavy desert lizard that eats maybe a few times a year. He found a molecule in that venom that looked almost exactly like a hormone the human gut makes after a meal. With one critical difference. The lizard's version didn't fall apart. It lasted. That discovery became the very first drug in this entire family, and it was built for one job, lowering blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes. Nobody was thinking about weight. But once doctors started prescribing it, they noticed something strange in the charts. The patients were losing weight. They weren't trying to. They just stopped being as hungry. The food noise in their heads, the one that narrates every kitchen at 9 p.m., went quiet. That wasn't a side effect to shrug off. That was the whole secret, knocking on the door. So let me show you the hormone behind all of it. It's a gut hormone called GLP-1. Forget the letters. Here's all you need. The moment food hits your system, your intestines release this messenger, and it does 3 things at once. First, it travels up to the control room in your brain that runs hunger, and it turns the dial down. Not with force, not with white knuckles. It simply tells the brain the meal landed, you're taken care of, you can stop now. Second, it slows how fast your stomach hands food off to the rest of the gut, so the meal sits with you. That full feeling that used to evaporate 20 minutes after lunch stretches into hours. Third, the original diabetes job, it nudges your body to handle blood sugar smoothly instead of letting it spike and crash, which is its own hidden hunger trigger. 3 jobs, 1 messenger. And here's the cruel catch your biology built in. Your own natural version of this hormone survives for about 2 minutes before an enzyme in your blood chews it to pieces. 2 minutes. Nature handed you a beautiful off switch for hunger, and then wired it to flicker out almost the instant it turns on. Now you understand exactly what these drugs are. Semaglutide, the molecule inside Ozempic and Wegovy, is a re-engineered copy of that same human messenger, rebuilt so it survives for an entire week instead. That's the trick. Not a stimulant, not a fat burner, not an appetite blocker. It's your own fullness signal, running on a battery that lasts 7 days instead of 120 seconds. Which means the thing you spent years blaming on weak discipline was never about discipline at all. That quiet, relentless hunger came from a fullness messenger that was either too faint to be heard or getting drowned out in a body that, past 40, worn down by a lifetime of dieting, had every reason to keep the volume low. Picture a thermostat reading the room 10 degrees colder than it really is, so the furnace runs and never clicks off. You weren't broken. The reading was wrong. This resets the reading, and once scientists finally had a version that lasted, they did the obvious thing. They took the strongest one they had and they tested it on thousands of ordinary adults to find out exactly how far this could go. What came back stunned even the people who designed the study. The program was called STEP, and the headline trial, published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2021 by a team led by Dr. John Wilding in the United Kingdom, ran for 68 weeks, about 16 months, across almost 2,000 adults who carried extra weight but did not have diabetes. Half got weekly semaglutide, half got a placebo, a dummy shot with nothing in it. Everyone got the same lifestyle coaching. Here's what came back. The placebo group, doing everything they were told, lost around 2 to 3% of their body weight over those 16 months, which, if you've ever white-knuckled a diet, sounds about right. The semaglutide group lost, on average, nearly 15%. Let that land. For a 200-pound person, that's roughly 30 pounds gone, on average, and held, not in a frantic month, but steadily over a year and change. And the averages hide the truly startling part. About 1 in 3 people on the drug lost a full 1/5 of their entire body weight. A 1/5. Gone. To understand why that detonated through medicine, you need the before. The weight loss drugs that came earlier were, frankly, embarrassing. The good ones got you maybe 5%, a few pounds, often clawed back, sometimes with side effects that weren't worth the trade. Doctors had basically 2 columns on the menu. Try harder, which you already know doesn't work, or weight loss surgery, which reroutes your insides on an operating table. There was nothing in between. This was the in-between that wasn't supposed to exist. The first time a weekly shot put surgery-range results within reach without a single incision. But here's where the honest part matters, because anyone can read you a big number. Losing weight was never really the point. It's what the weight was doing to you on the inside that mattered. And here the picture got better, not worse. In a separate, far larger trial called SELECT, researchers at the Cleveland Clinic followed more than 17,000 adults who already had heart disease and carried extra weight, but again, no diabetes. Published in 2023, it asked a harder question than what the scale says. It asked whether the drug kept people alive. And it did. Semaglutide cut the risk of heart attack, stroke, and death from heart disease by about 20%, independent of how much weight anyone actually lost. Sit with that. This stopped being a vanity story the moment those numbers came in. A drug born from a desert lizard's venom to tame blood sugar turned out to quietly guard the human heart. That is not a diet pill. That is something a lot closer to real medicine. So semaglutide rewrote the ceiling. It became the most prescribed, most argued about, most imitated weight medication on the planet. For about a year, it sat on the throne alone, and then a second drug walked in, built on the very same idea but carrying one extra move that semaglutide never had. And it didn't just match the king, it beat him. The drug was Tirzepatide. You'll know it as Mounjaro and Zepbound. And the reason it dethroned semaglutide comes down to one elegant addition. Semaglutide copies a single messenger, that fullness signal we've been tracing this whole time. Tirzepatide copies that one too, and then it copies a second gut hormone right alongside it. This one is called GIP. Don't get hung up on the name. It's simply another hormone your intestines release when food shows up, working a slightly different angle on the same appetite and fuel system. One drug, two signals, fired at the same moment. Why does hitting two targets beat hitting one? Honestly, scientists are still arguing over the fine print of how that second hormone earns its keep. But picture rowing a boat with a single oar. You'll move, sure, and you'll also spin in circles, fighting yourself the whole way. Drop in the second oar, and suddenly you're going straight for half the effort. The body responded the same way. The proof came in a trial called Surmount, published in 2022 by a team led by Dr. Anya Jastreboff at Yale. More than 2,500 adults, 17 months, the same honest setup as before, drug against an inactive shot. The top dose delivered an average loss of almost 21% of body weight, against roughly 3% for the dummy. And more than a third of those people lost a full quarter of everything they were carrying. A quarter. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. For years, the two drugs had only ever been tested apart, on different people, which is a sloppy way to crown a winner. So in 2025, in a head-to-head study led by Dr. Louis Aron at Weill Cornell, they were finally put in the same room. Same patients, same rules. Tirzepatide didn't edge it out. It produced close to half again as much weight loss as semaglutide. Not a photo finish, a clean win. If this is the kind of breakdown you wish someone had handed you years ago, the actual machinery instead of the noise, do me a small favor and tap subscribe. I build one of these every single week. Half a second, and you're in. Then stay with me, because here is where the whole story turns. Because every number I just gave you describes one thing, and one thing only: how far the scale moved. And the scale is a liar. It weighs everything you lose and tells you none of it apart. It cannot see that some of what walked out the door with the fat was the very tissue that keeps you strong, upright, and metabolically alive past 50. And it has nothing whatsoever to say about the morning you stop, the morning the signal falls quiet again, and your body, which never agreed to any of this, begins quietly making its case to take all of it back. That is the part of the story almost nobody is selling you. Here's the first thing the scale hides. When weight comes off this fast, not all of it is fat. A share of it, by some measures as much as 40%, is lean tissue, muscle. And muscle is not decor. It is the most metabolically expensive tissue you own. It burns fuel just by existing, even while you sleep. It's what lets you climb stairs without thinking, catch yourself when you trip, carry the groceries in one trip, rise out of a low chair at 70 without planning the maneuver. After 50, you're already shedding a little of it every year simply from the passage of time. Strip more away in a hurry, and you can end up lighter on the scale, but weaker in the world. The exact kind of weakness that, decades from now, helps decide whether you stay independent or not. The good news, and hold on to it, this loss isn't destiny. It's largely preventable, but only if you know it's happening, and almost no one is told. Then there's the part everyone whispers about: the stomach. Slowing how fast your gut empties is part of how the whole thing works, but push it too far and the body protests. Nausea, the kind of full that curdles into queasy. For some, vomiting or a few days spent living near a bathroom. It's usually worst as the dose climbs, and it usually settles. But for a real minority, it never does, and they walk away. The shot that was supposed to hand them their life back instead just made them miserable. And then there's the morning you stop. Maybe the cost got too high. These run hundreds of dollars a month. Maybe your insurance dropped it. Maybe you simply decided you were finished. Here's what the research found, and it might be the most important sentence in this entire video. When people came off semaglutide, they did not hold their loss. In a follow-up to that first landmark trial published in 2022, participants regained about 2/3 of everything they had lost within a single year of stopping. 2/3 back. And, say it plainly, that is not weakness. That is the mechanism doing precisely what it was always going to do. The drug never deleted the hunger, it muted it. Take the drug away, the mute comes off, and the body that spent your whole life guarding its weight picks up exactly where it left off. Think of a beach ball you'd been holding under the water. Let go, and it doesn't drift gently up. It detonates to the surface, which forces a conclusion most people aren't ready for. For a lot of folks, these aren't a course you complete. They're a treatment you stay on, the way nobody expects to swallow a blood pressure pill for 90 days and be cured of high blood pressure for life. That isn't a scandal. It's just the honest truth about what kind of drug this is. And it's a truth far better learned before you start than discovered after. So if today's versions are already this powerful and this complicated, what happens when researchers add a third signal? Not one more way to quiet your hunger, but one that reaches in and turns up how much fuel your body burns on its own. Because that drug isn't a someday idea. It is being tested on real people right now. And it points straight at where all of this is going. That third signal has a name and a hormone behind it. The drug is called Tirzepatide, and it does everything the others do. It quiets hunger through both of the gut messengers we've already met, and then it adds a lever the earlier drugs never touched. That lever is glucagon. Now, glucagon usually gets cast as a villain in the blood sugar story, but here it's pulling a different and useful shift. Picture the first two signals as easing your foot off the gas of hunger. Glucagon taps the pedal on the other side. It nudges your body to spend more energy, to burn through fuel instead of tucking it away. 2 brakes on appetite, 1 accelerator on burning, all in a single weekly shot. And the early results were almost hard to believe. A first round of testing a few years back hinted this could push past everything before it. Then, just this month, in May of 2026, Eli Lilly's large Phase 3 program reported the real thing. At the top dose, an average loss of around 28% of body weight, and in some people who stayed on it across 2 years, as much as 30%. Numbers that just a few years ago, no pill or shot was ever supposed to reach. A fair warning, because honesty is the entire point of this channel. Tirzepatide is not approved yet. It's still in trials, the long-term safety story is still being written, and more powerful always travels hand in hand with more we don't know. This isn't a green light, it's a preview. There's a second frontier too, and it's about access. Every drug we've discussed is an injection, and plenty of people will simply never pick up a needle. So the race has been on to pour this same biology into a tablet you swallow. The first of those, orforglipron, sold as Foundeo, has now reached pharmacy shelves. No syringe, no refrigeration. That alone could change who this ever reaches. So where does all of it leave you, tonight, standing in your own kitchen? Here's what the research suggests, and notice I said suggests, because what's right for your body is a conversation between you and your doctor, not a stranger on a screen. First, remember the tissue the scale can't see. The studies are consistent here. Some form of strength work a couple of times a week, paired with enough protein to give your body the raw material, is what guards your power while the fat comes off. That's how you make sure what leaves is the weight you wanted gone, not the strength you'll be grateful for at 80. Second, treat this as a long partnership, not a sprint to a number on a scale. And third, none of these shots erase the fundamentals. Sleep, movement, real food. They work alongside that foundation. They were never built to replace it. Because here's the quiet truth this whole story has been pointing at. The hunger you battled for years. The weight that came back no matter what you tried. It was never a verdict on your character. It was biology, doing its ancient job a little too well in a world it was never designed for. And for the first time in human history, the science has finally caught up to what your body was trying to tell you the whole time. If this gave you something real, the actual science, no hype and no fear, then subscribe and stay with me. I make one of these every week. And leave a comment with whatever you want next. The hormone shifts that hit in your 50s, the honest read on a supplement you keep seeing everywhere, anything at all. I read every one of them. I'll see you in the next one.